Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Human Challenge, where we explore all of the human challenges in today's world, the challenges of being human, and how we can challenge ourselves to be more human for the greater good. I'm your host, Vanessa Ferlano, and today we are joined by Cynthia Jurs, Dharma teacher in the Order of Interbeing of Zen Master Thich Nhat Hanh, who I did fangirl a little bit when I found this out. And Cynthia was also made an honorary Lama in the Vajrayana tradition of Tibetan Buddhism, and a recognition of her dedication in carrying the Earth Treasure Vase practice, which she will tell us all about today, and which she did share in her new book, Summoned by Earth, released March 2024. How are you doing, Cynthia?
I'm great. I'm so happy to be here. Thanks, Vanessa.
Thank you. I am so happy that you're here. And I was telling you earlier how much I love to read your book. It was just so, it was warm. If I could describe it in like a word and a feeling, it was warm. It was how I felt reading it. It was just so inviting and truthful. And it just felt like I was reading in a warm light all the time. So thank you so much for sharing all of that in your book. It was, I think, almost 400 pages of just complete wisdom and this journey that I'm not even sure, I don't even know where to begin when I think of it.
Yeah, it's a global healing journey, so it's kind of big. And
Yes.
I congratulate you for reading the whole book and sharing it with your people because I think it's a story that needs to get out there in these times.
100%. Tell us a little bit. Obviously, you and I know what we're talking about here, but tell us a little bit. We talked about these Earth Treasure Vases. Beautiful concept. Absolutely love it. Not even concept, beautiful practice. And so, could you share with us a little bit about that, and then some of the, what you've been doing with these Earth Treasure Vases for the last couple decades? I think at minimum a couple decades, but I think it might be more.
About 3 decades.
Wow.
Yeah, no. So in 1990, I had the chance to go to meet an old wise man living in a cave in Nepal. He was a 106-year-old Tibetan Lama, and he lived way up high in the Himalayas in a very remote region. And I was invited to go meet him. And I was kind of amazed at this incredible opportunity. And it wasn't until I was walking up the path that I realized, oh, I have the chance to ask a question of the old proverbial old wise man in the cave. I should come up with something pretty good, you know? And so what came to me at that time was, what can we do to bring healing and protection to the earth? And even back then, over 30 years ago, it was clear that, you know, the web of life was starting to really unravel. And it's been my deep concern for my life, really. And so I asked him, what can we do? And all this, of course, is a story in the book, many, many stories in the book. But he told me, well, you need to get these earth treasure vases and you need to put them in the ground, and they will do that work. And my rational mind thought, really, how's a clay pot filled with prayers and symbolic offerings going to deal with or address the kinds of things that we're seeing in the world, like climate change in drastic terms, unrest, civil unrest, social injustice. And here in New Mexico, where I live, we live with the presence of the Los Alamos National Laboratory, which is where the bomb was first created and where nuclear weapons industry is still being carried out. And the radioactive waste coming off of the production of nuclear weapons is changing everything in terms of the balance of a life on earth. And so these are the kinds of things that were on my mind and in my heart. Um and so anyway, it was like, here, you do this, and I was like, really, you do that? And but then there was the other part of me that said, okay, let's try it. What do we got to lose? And so I said, where do we get them? And so one thing led to another, and the lamas made, originally they made 30 earth treasure vases. I didn't know what to say. How many do you want? It's like 10,000. But I received 30, and then I later received another 40, and then we made another set of them. So we're close to 100 now, and some of them are still in process, going all over the planet. And in the course of these 30 years, a global healing community has kind of been born, really. We call it the Gaia Mandala. And each of the locations where the treasure vases have been placed are like nodes on this global mandala, planting like seeds being planted in the earth, filled these pots filled with our um, deepest aspirations, our deepest prayers, our deepest intentions, and what we love and care about most, because everywhere, everyone all around the planet cares about their land and their communities and their the peace in their world, and the trees and the water and all that. So that gets poured into these little clay pots, and then they get planted, and then we watch what happens, because we can't predict. And sometimes it's really immediate, and sometimes it takes longer, but and sometimes it's very tangible, and sometimes it's more subtle. But amazing things have happened, and continue to happen as this whole thing continues to unfold. So that's really, you know, that's in a very general way what my assignment has been, and what the book is about: stories from all over the world, and also what I've learned, and what has been transformed in me and in others as we have carried this out.
Absolutely. And it was so beautiful. That is not an easy task by any means. And I think just to see how, for me as a reader, when I read it, and to see how I think you were learning, not learning, but how you were like trusting yourself to go through all that, and really tuning in intuitively to know where were these next spaces and these locations that I was going to. And I think it was a very empowering journey for me, as a reader, observing and reading that, and just going through that, I think, with you as a reader, and seeing that journey lay out. You visited quite a few locations, because you mentioned you had about 100 of the Earth vases, treasure vases. How many in the book? How many though do you talk about? Because you don't go through the full 100, right? In the book, you've kind of referenced how many did you go through in the book?
I don't know. I never did end up counting. I mean, altogether, I think we are currently working with 96. And out of those, I don't have the count in my head, but I think about, um, gosh, at least 65, maybe 70 now are in the ground. And so we're in this process. And now what's happened is, like, I was very involved in stewarding, as I say. The first 30 plus were like my babies,
Mm-hmm.
and then I started to pass them to other people who were coming forward saying, well, I want to take one here, or what about there? And we were always just listening to what Gaia wanted, because it's like, you can't figure these things out with your head, honestly. You can't just systematically go about it. It's too big, too beyond the mind, really. So but I did a lot of them, and I still do. I mean, I still do. I took a group to Delphi in Greece a year or so ago. That was a really big thing I write about at the very end of the book. We recently took one of the treasure vases to Washington, D.C. Um, that was really amazing. We buried it on Earth Day, and it was filled with, just all kinds of auspiciousness, which felt really, really good. We just dedicated one to Palestine. They go off in all kinds of directions. And then some of them were made by individuals who are then stewarding them more locally, like, for regions that the people who made them are really connected to or live in. But in the book, I write about going to Africa, to Liberia, incredibly powerful former war zone, just terribly
Mm-hmm.
conflicted place. Congo, Democratic Republic of Congo, which is a place I wanted to go very, very deeply. Um, and Australia was a big, big part of the journey. And going into the Aboriginal communities there, we've tried to make relations with the elders, in the different lands that we go to, and really honoring them as the holders of the original connection to the land and to the to the cultures that we visit, and not presuming, anything about what we're doing until we have their blessing. So Native American, South American, all over the world.
Mhm.
There's a list in the book, there's a map in the book, and on the website too. So if people are interested to dig in, yeah. Are there any specific places that you have a interest in hearing more about, Vanessa?
I mean, there's quite a few that I think really, really spoke to me. But I think that one of the things that I absolutely, one of the locations I think that I would say when I was going through the book, it was one of the locations that made me really pause and absorb and kind of realize, I think made me realize how big what you're doing actually is. When you spoke about the experience and going to the Congo, to the Congo, and I think because you talked about a lot of different themes and a lot of different experiences. There was about gender-based violence, domestic violence, sexual abuse, and then in the Congo, a lot of that work was really around working with women, empowering with women. And so I think it was like one of those experiences that really made me see, wow, this is huge, to see the overlay of all these different webs and themes coming together. Was very, very powerful for me. My foundation, the Being Human Foundation, we have 5 different themes, which includes the planet, gender-based violence, et cetera, et cetera. And it's because we also acknowledge that these themes are not just siloed themes; they are woven together by all of these injustices, by patriarchy, which I know you also talked about. And so I think the Congo, that for me was an experience that really opened up and just really, I just felt it. I felt how powerful this practice really is of burying the earth treasure vases.
Yeah, thank you. It was actually when I went to Congo where I felt like things really shifted for me and like came into focus, came into gear with the practice, because I realized that if we're talking about global healing, there are certain core issues that are at the center of the problems that we're dealing with. And of course, as you say, it's all interconnected. But the violence and abuse of women is one of the core themes, core issues that you see then reflected in the abuse of the earth. Like it's inseparable. And so if there's imbalance and abuse of or the rape of the rainforest and the minerals in Congo, which is like one of the most mineral rich places in the world, where all the minerals that fuel our cell phones and everything come from, and there's just so much abuse of the land and the waters that is then carried out on the bodies of women, and this happens all over the world. I mean, it's not just Congo, but I felt very called to wanting to go there because I have my own history of sexual abuse. And it was like, okay, well, because I can't separate my life either. If I'm going to be in integrity with a practice like this, then it's up to me and all of us who are involved in it, really, to do the work ourselves, because it starts right here.
Mhm.
So anyway, that was a really big calling, and the situation in Congo, I mean, and what we did was so incredible, because we met this woman named Nema Namadamu, who is dedicated to empowering women, and started eventually after we met and she came to the US and we helped her get started. She started something called Hero Women Rising. And it's an incredible organization. And actually, someone else that I know you interviewed, Osprey Oriole Lake, I invited her and Nema to come together because when I was in Congo, I realized, this is also the other reason I wanted to go there. Congo is the second largest rainforest outside of Brazil. And so the forests there are significant for the whole planet, for the health of the whole planet, for the air that we breathe and all of that. And they're cutting down the trees right and left in Congo. I mean, it's just diminishing so rapidly, like, other areas we could name. So Osprey has now taught the women in Nema's organization to plant trees, and that's one of the things that they're doing. And so that was really a direct outcome of taking the treasure vase there, as well as taking it into the community of the Pygmy people, who are the one of the oldest indigenous cultures of the planet, having lived in the rainforests in Congo and that whole region carrying such incredible knowledge and wisdom, but treated like, less than a dog. And so there's just so many issues, but the empowerment of the women there, getting them to tell their stories, getting them to stand up and be empowered. And there's other people who are doing this work, like Eve Ensler, who has done incredible work with women in Congo as well. But that is so healing for me to go there. It's a beautiful, beautiful place, and the impression that everyone has from the book "The Heart of Darkness" by Joseph Conrad, is like that's is negative overlay on a very, very beautiful place. In fact, Congo is considered the heart of Africa. I mean, it's like, in this course of these journeys, I've been to several other places too that are called the heart of the world, or the heart of Africa, the heart. And there's just places where that are so key, to the whole. And Congo is one of those places. And so for the sake of all life on earth, it's one of those. Um, yeah, I could go on, but maybe that's a little taste.
No, I appreciate that so much. And I think one of the other reasons that I really liked the experience in the Congo, or that it really spoke to me, because I think it also spoke to the practice of mindfulness in general, because you spoke about that was that one general, right, who I think engaged in the practice and now teaches mindfulness to other youth. And so, and I think that was another reason that it really spoke to me, because you could see how mindfulness healing really was powerful. Because I think this individual, he was a former militia, if I remember correctly, right? I think. And then you had met him, and you worked with him on mindfulness, and now he has completely transformed, and he now teaches, I think, if I remember correctly.
Well, this is actually not Congo, but Liberia, which
Oh, thank you.
is
Yes.
another country in Africa. The first place I went actually was there. And, I didn't even know where Liberia was, a small country in West Africa. Um, and, and they had just come out of a really, really devastating civil war that has, went on for a long time. It's a very difficult place. And I was invited there by a group called the Everyday Gandhis, doing peace building work post Civil War, and brought the treasure vase into the worst fought area of the war, which borders Sierra Leone, Guinea, and Liberia. They all share this border. And um, I met a whole lot of just incredible people, including this former rebel general. He was in the army for 25 years, and then ended up joining the rebel forces to fight against Charles Taylor and Prince Johnson. And oh gosh, it's a long story, but he never knew anything but the rule of the gun, and then when I met him, he asked me to teach him how to meditate. I rang the bell. I asked everyone to breathe and, practice mindfulness. And then I shared about the treasure vase. And he came up to me afterwards and was like, you know, I need this. I want this. Please teach me how to meditate. I thought he was got to be joking, but he wouldn't leave me alone. And then I went to Liberia with the treasure vase about a year later, and he was there, and he helped every step of the way. And when the vase got buried, he was there, and the elders said, "How, now what? We want to remember this because this was really important." They were so worried about the war, and having peace. And so they poured their hearts into this. And so then he was the one to say, well, let's build a peace hut in the village where we buried the treasure vase. And a peace hut is a place where conflict can be resolved in the traditional way. And actually, the process of doing that is often overseen and kind of governed by the women, who were really effective in stopping the war. It was the women who stopped the war in Liberia. It's a great story. There's a film called Pray the Devil Back to Hell. If you haven't seen it, I would recommend it. But anyway, so I ended up just to make the story shorter, we have now built 5 peace huts in 5 conflict-prone regions of Liberia. This gentleman and his colleagues came to practice with me. I taught them mindfulness. Then I got them scholarships to Plum Village, which is Thich Nhat Hanh's community in France. uh, the former general Bethelson lived there off and on for 3 years, really studying and transforming so deeply. And today, a decade later, um, he's simply not the same person that he was, and so it goes on, and they use mindfulness as a peace building mechanism, which is really effective. And um, yeah, so we'll see where it goes from here. But it
No,
continues. Yeah.
it is. It's very beautiful because I always found for myself, I'm from, Western society, and I think mindfulness is it's very powerful, but it goes beyond just reducing stress and anxiety, and all those things are obviously great. But the truth of it is, is our interconnectedness to ourselves, to each other, to the world, and so I love stories like that because it, like you just said, mindfulness is for peace building, and they use it for peace building because that's what it is. And it's why I love Thich Nhat Hanh's work and all his publications and his book, because he talks engaged Buddhism. And my
Yeah.
foundation also is kind of both based on that, engaged Buddhism. And it's very beautiful because I think it's the truth of mindfulness. It's not just about stress reduction, which is all fine and dandy, but it is, the truth of bringing everybody together. And so I love stories like that. I think are very, very powerful. Um, I
Mhm.
wanted to ask you a little bit about your journey, because then I want to talk about Thich Nhat Hanh, because I do love him, and I'm like, oh, I'm a big fangirl when he married you. I was like, what? Like, or like you and your husband and your partner, but it was just like, love it. But I did want to ask you because you talked a lot about going through your journey, and then obviously you were ordained as a lama as well, and so. But there was a little bit, I know in the book you wrote a little about the conflict of that, and that conflict of the system still that did exist in this sort of traditional pathway. And so I would love for you to share a little bit more about that, because it was very interesting. It was a really, really interesting, and I'm really grateful to have been a part of that experience as a reader, that you were totally vulnerable in that and talking about this was a pathway that was like so important to you, but yet, there was still this conflict of some parts of it, right? Of still being a part of that system.
Yeah. Yeah. No, oh gosh, there's so much to say about all of that. But you know, Buddhism and so many of the spiritual traditions are very patriarchal and hierarchical. And there's been quite a lot of abuse, here and there. Luckily, not in Thich Nhat Hanh's tradition, lineage, but in many of the others. And um, I was always kind of struggling with the fact, especially in the Tibetan tradition, which I love very much, and have received incredible teachings within the context of. But um, there is abuse, and there is power issues, that especially towards women are just not okay. It's just not okay.
Mhm.
And so I was always kind of like trying to find the way in that didn't also include all of that,
Mhm.
especially then once I really was into carrying the Earth Treasure Vases all around the world, I was more and more listening to the earth as my great teacher, in these times, and feeling like, the earth was summoning me, as I title of
Mhm.
my book. And many of us are hearing her call because she is speaking loudly today. And when we look at the incredible web of life as reflected in Mother Nature, it's just, you see all this harmony, you see the beauty and the harmony and the living systems working together. And it's like there it all is. And when you go out into nature, you feel restored, you feel back to your true self, as Thich Nhat Hanh would say. You just take a breath, one breath, and you're connected to the whole system. And there you are. We're not separate, and we're not separate from the trees and the animals and the rivers and all of that. So for me, that has become the path and the teachings and the teacher and everything. And so I gradually began to kind of migrate towards Gaia as my guru, and less involved with having to sort of toe the party line of the Dharma as it's being transmitted in order to keep the system intact in the old way. Even because I think there's a lot that needs to transform,
Mhm.
as we see all over the world in political systems and everything else. It's like it's not working anymore,
Mhm.
and we need to really find some new ways forward. And so for me, the practice of meditation is very helpful because when we meditate, we enter into sacred time. We're not conditioned by the same dynamics that keep us going around and around in the same old ways. If we don't stop from time to time, take a breath, come back to that sense of interconnectedness, interbeing, as Thich Nhat Hanh would say, and then look with new eyes, feel with our hearts. So that's the invitation, and the treasure vases really invite us into that too. So, I've grappled with this a lot. I've had to, come to terms with a lot of the expectations that are embedded in the system that I kind of came up with inside of, and now it's a new path. This path that I'm teaching and sharing and inviting people to get in touch with, each in your own way. I mean, it's not about joining or being
Mhm.
some belief system or anything like that. It's like your own experience in connection to life on earth in these times. What do you hear? What are you, what's calling you? I don't
Mhm.
know if that answers your question, but
Yeah, no, no, absolutely. I mean, it was really just about that experience because I know that I saw that, that questioning and this, this the questioning of accepting this gift, but also holding space with this contradiction of it, and some of the things that these things that you were in conflict with around, particularly the patriarchal and hierarchical ways of this particular pathway. And so I just yeah, I really appreciated that perspective. A lot when reading the book, and it really made me pause and go, wow, that's powerful. I think very, very powerful.
it's tricky to keep connected to and appreciative of the tradition and the teachings that have been kept alive, the ancestor. It's
Mhm.
like within the native traditions as well. You want to honor what has come before, but you also have to recognize when things need to change. And to kind of integrate the relative and the absolute, so to speak,
Mhm.
with standing for what is um, um, what is part of the evolutionary journey of life on Earth.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I want to ask you, because I know we only have a few minutes left, but I wanted to ask you as well. I mean, this book, I mean, this is, like you said, I mean, decades of bringing people together, of planting these Earth Treasure Vases. What was it when you sat down to write this? Like, how long did it take? Because I mean, these experience, like I mean, you're talking multiple different countries that you go to, all these different people that you meet, and the detail is very like very meticulous. As a reader, I was like, wow, like what was it like writing this? How did you, I mean, I assume you must have been journaling and documenting as you went along, because don't know how, like, like, I don't know, but it was amazing. It was really amazing. So I'd love to learn more about how you wrote it and what that experience was.
Yeah, thank you. I have always kept a journal, since I was little. And so I did write, but I couldn't keep up with it. This stuff was happening so fast, really. I was possessed to do this. And I was like consumed and possessed, and I felt a lot of pressure about it, like, okay, this is what I can do, and the world is calling for it. So anyway, I was just like going, and then at a certain point it was like I felt like I just was a whale washing up on shore or something. I couldn't go anymore, and that's when I started passing these treasure bases on to other people to help with. But I also realized, in order to integrate and come to terms with everything I was living through and all these different cultures and stuff, that I had to write about it. So I set out to do that, and I just started, I mean, it was already like a 25-year plus, almost 30-year journey. And so, I had lived through so much, and it was a lot to take on, just to write about. In fact, it was sort of more difficult to write about it than it was to live it out, because I had to really come to terms with it in a way that I and stop long enough to do that. It
Yeah.
took me eight years to write the book.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow. 8 years. Oh my gosh.
I know. And it was
Wow.
like, oh, I got to get this out. And it was it's taken too long. I mean, I wrote it in a couple of years, but then it required a lot
Yeah.
of editing and there's footnotes in the book, there's citations, there's, a lot of stuff too and glossary of terms, Tibetan terms and all that. And,
Right.
so it's very well researched, but it's also deeply personal, and also how the personal connects with the collective,
Yeah.
because my journey is all about what I now call collective awakening, which is a term that, well, Thich Nhat Hanh didn't give it that term, but he said, the next Buddha will be a Sangha, meaning, a community. It's not the individual anymore. It's the collective, and it's a whole new time. So I really tried to bring my life into that context, and all this whole practice. So it was, and there weren't a lot of teachers, frankly, even though I'm so deeply connected to the Dharma and the Buddhist teachings and all of that. A lot of the teachers were like, you're still doing this treasure vase thing, well, come on, you should really be doing this.
Mhm.
And I kept feeling like, I'm sorry, but no, this is it, you
Mhm.
know? And so it has opened the world. It has opened my own understanding, consciousness, and brought about so much. So, but yeah, I had to go back through it
Wow.
a lot, and I had an editor finally who was amazing, who really called me to task, as you might be familiar with that process. It's like, oh, Cynthia, this is all really great, but what about this? I want to hear a little more about that. And I'd be like, oh no, really? And then she'd say something along the lines of dot, dot, dot. It'd be enough to just open it up, and then I would just let it come.
Yeah.
So I realized I had to be personal in order to, and I'm glad to hear, you got a lot out of it. I think maybe partly
Yeah.
because of that, right? Yeah.
Oh yeah, 100%. No, 100%. You always know when an author is like, speaking from their heart, from their truth, versus someone who's just kind of writing for writing is a huge difference. Huge difference. And it's like I felt it, I felt reading it and I was like, wow, I could feel a lot of it. And it was no, it was really beautiful, a really beautiful journey. I mean, 8 years is a long time. However, I'm not surprised given like how much like you can tell like this was work and like the good kind of work, but like that it was like very intentional and had definitely had to go back inwards and probably do a lot of revisiting, and so I can't even imagine. But yeah, it was wow. That's wild. I this the comment having a good editor who can call you to task. Yes. Plus, I totally understand that. I'm going through that process myself, and I sent my one draft to my publisher. His feedback to me was one sentence, and I was like, I got to rewrite. Like it takes like 8 words, an 8 word sentence, and I was like, oh, and then I like rewrote the whole thing. So it's a different type of magic. These editors don't know how they do it. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. I know right now. So right now we can get your book wherever books are sold. What other ways can we, stay in touch with you, with some of your other practices, and how can we be a part of this, of your journey of the Earth Treasure Vase and bringing all this collective healing? What are the ways that we can do that?
Oh, wow. Well, yeah, the book website is summitbytheearth.org, and you can read about it and learn about it there. Order it on all the places you would go to order, as you said. And then GaiaMandala.net is the name of the website that has all the practices that we do and stuff. It also is a place where you can sign up for the newsletter that goes out once a month prior to the full moon. We do a meditation every month at the time of the full moon that is the Earth Treasure Vase Global Healing Meditation. It's free of charge. Everybody can come. We have people from all over the world now. There's, thousands of people who are following this now. And it's kind of incredible, really. And so we do it 1 month is in the evening and 1 month in the morning, US time, so that we can get everyone live, and then we send out the recordings. And it's a time also to hear about the stories of people who are stewarding treasure vases now. And the newsletter also shares those stories, and they're also on the website. So that's a really great resource. We have an online community on Mighty Networks that's also a place where people can connect and participate and share, so that's a wonderful resource as well to build community, because we're building a global healing community and really talking a lot about collective awakening and global healing, and how we're part of that, and how our intentions, whatever they are feeding into what we want to see in the world. So there's a number of practices. There's a regular mindfulness practice group. There's I teach a practice called the Sublime Mother Gaia that I'll be teaching in upstate New York the end of September at a retreat center called Menla. It's just a weekend retreat, but it's a beautiful, beautiful practice, sort of inspired by the Tibetan way of practicing, with a visualization and a mantra that came to me in my own journey that I write a little bit about in the book. And we sing the mantra. It's a beautiful practice to form a relationship directly with Mother Gaia, and to begin the process of coming back to our own true nature and what is calling us in the world, what is summoning us. I'm going to be doing a lot more teaching and talking about all of that. But we have a wonderful, group of quite a few fabulous young people now who are helping facilitate the groups. And so I just invite everyone to check us out and come onto the full moon. Is a great way to start off, and then see where that leads, and hopefully come to a retreat or join a pilgrimage. There's treasure vase pilgrimages happening fairly often, and we do a convergence, like an annual convergence, where this coming year it'll be in Australia, where we'll gather to, as we say in Australia, sing up the song lines, the lines of energy moving in the earth, and really build the energy for a new operating system to take root in the world, in the world, and in our relationship to each other in the world. So may it be so, right?
Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you for writing this book. Thank you for all the hard work. And I do invite everybody. We'll have all the links in the description of the show. So I do invite everyone to explore it a little bit further. Thank you so much, Cynthia.
You're so welcome, Vanessa. Great to be with you.